It's so dang hot outside. 100+ degree days and hotter than normal temps have been pretty common lately, and we're all feeling it to some extent. World temperature records were broken multiple times on July 4th week, meaning our complaints of rising temps aren't melodramatic, they're real. We're breaking history, and not in a fun way. Global warming has meant temps have been steadily increasing for decades. And aside from just being uncomfortable and annoying, the temps are also causing economic issues across the globe at a larger scale than most realize. Industries from transportation to tourism are being impacted, and there doesn't seem to be an end in sight. The temperature increase is due to greenhouse gases created by burning fossil fuels, trapping the sun's heat. This leads to global warming and climate change, resulting in the increase in temperatures and intensity of storms across the country you've been hearing about, or perhaps experiencing firsthand. There's your science lesson for the day. The first thing that comes to mind when it gets hot outside is probably, my electricity bill is gonna be wild. That's the first thing I think about. And there's some truth to that, since you'll obviously be more tempted to crank the AC in summer than you would in the spring or fall months. And then there's also the fact that millions of people are behind on utility payments right now due to prioritizing other inflation-impacted expenses like food, housing. But there's another utility issue that can have a massive impact, and that's the strain increased energy demand puts on the US power grid, which is just how power gets from power plants to your home or business. Like a circuit breaker, components of a power grid can trip and shut off when a load is dangerously high, creating a domino effect that leads to a blackout and millions of people being without power. This can cause billions of dollars in costs to the impacted areas. In the case of the 2003 blackout, which was one of the largest to date in US history, the northeastern US power system and sections of the Ontario power system in Canada began to shut down. The impact was over 50 million people losing power for multiple days in some cases, and a cost to the economy of somewhere between $7 and $10 billion. Controlling your own energy consumption can not only help with the burdens on the power grid, but also can help you get some relief on your own power bill each month. A few things you can do in the summer are set your thermostat to 78 degrees or higher, health permitting. I know that's hard, it's hard for me, but it does help. Charge your phone and other devices outside peak hours, which are usually about 3 to 10 p.m. Use fans instead of AC when possible. Avoid using the oven, and limit how much you open your fridge or freezer. Another major issue with global warming is the other natural disasters that can spur as a result. Canadian wildfires that started earlier this year continue to burn, wreaking havoc and air quality impacts across borders. The fires have burned around 27 million acres of land since the beginning of 2023. The annualized economic burden from smoke, along with other air pollution culprits like factory output, car exhaust, that's roughly $800 billion a year. And the economic impacts of a wildfire go well beyond the costs of personal property damages. They also include health costs and indirect losses due to power shutoffs, business closures, travel cancellations, supply chain disruptions, impacts to local tourism, and more. The increased level of air pollution also makes work tougher, particularly for outdoor workers, like those in the construction space and landscapers, which can lead to slows in productivity. Aside from wildfires, warmer worldwide temperatures also means warmer oceans, and warmer oceans fuel storms. As storms travel across the warm oceans, they pull in more water vapor and heat. This means more intense storms with stronger winds, heavier rainfall, and more flooding when the storms hit land. And the conditions that produce severe thunderstorms that can spawn tornadoes are more likely to increase as the world warms as well. Couple all these factors together, and you get strong, intense, and dangerous storms that can leave losses to properties, bank accounts, and lives in their wake. Speaking of all the losses, insurance companies are not loving that. After shelling out millions of dollars in disaster claims over the past few years, major insurance providers are pulling out of disaster-prone states like Florida, which has long been known for its unpredictable hurricane season. The same challenges can be seen in California with its volatile wildfire season. Homeowners in both states are finding it increasingly more difficult to protect their homes. Costs for rebuilds and repairs, those continue to climb, which hasn't only resulted in a mass exodus of insurance providers from the states, but also an increase in insurance premiums for folks nationwide. If you're an impacted homeowner and you're finding it hard to get insured, I know that that's a scary, infuriating feeling, but you do have some options. The first thing to do is to make sure you're checking your mail so that you can act fast. Most of us, me included, are guilty of ignoring mail from familiar places and letting it sit a bit before you open it. But it's important you give yourself as much time to act as possible. And typically, insurance providers are only required to give you 30 days notice of cancellation, which doesn't leave you a ton of time to find a new provider. Once you've found out that you've been dropped, shop around. Just because that company won't insure you any longer doesn't mean no one will. You should also check with your provider to see if making improvements to the home could help. In some cases, not all, but in some cases, making upgrades to the roof, weatherproofing, etc., could help get your insurance renewed. This doesn't always work out, but it's worth exploring as a possibility. You might also consider checking with an independent insurance broker that can help connect you with lesser-known insurance providers. And then, when all else fails, try checking local programs. States often have state-run insurance programs that can help uninsurable residents find coverage. It may not be the cheapest option or the most comprehensive option, but it would be something. One more economic domino that gets knocked down by these increasingly hot days is the tourism industry. And ironically, tourism is a leading cause of global warming, with emissions generated from trips making up 8% of the world's carbon emissions. But many tourist destinations are climate dependent. If you go to a Caribbean island, it's usually for relaxing beach days, basking in sunny, idyllic weather. But global temperature increases can lead to sweltering hot days, rising sea levels, and more intense tropical storms, which may kill your beachside vibes just a little bit. And not just tropical tourism is at risk. Global warming also means snowy mountaintop retreats aren't staying snowy as long, decreasing the ski season or prompting visitors to shorten their stays. In fact, the snowy season is estimated to have decreased by 34 days between 1982 and 2016, which may not seem like a ton in the grand scheme of a year, but when you consider most ski seasons are only a few months long, with local businesses and wage workers fully dependent upon the weather for their livelihoods, you see how this can be a problem. And when industries take a hit, the expense has to get passed along somewhere, which could lead to increased rates in flights, hotels, and more. All right, let me wrap this thing up because I know that was a lot. Whether you live in a town that is impacted by exceptionally hot summer days and increased natural disasters or not, doesn't matter. The economic impacts will touch all of us in some way or another. I also know that it can feel like we're all just on this runaway global warming train and there's nothing we can do about it. But remember, just like when we talk about saving money, small steps can make a big difference. Don't feel like you personally have to save the world. But if you make small reductions to your energy usage, you'll not only benefit your own power bill and your pocket, but you'll also be making your own small impact on global warming as well. And maybe in lieu of traveling across the world on a plane for your next vacation, you take a train across the country instead. Might save you money, you might see some beautiful countryside, and you'll reduce your footprint a little bit. For now, stay cool. And wish me luck. I'll be in Texas next week, melting away. Thanks for watching Control Finance. Looking for other ways to make an impact? Pop over to our ESG hub on NerdWallet.com. There you can find resources for making money moves with companies that are aligned with your values. See you there. Bye.